So let's say the Blue Jackets do not spend big on wing this offseason, but they do still need to bring in some bodies. Let's talk about some potential cheaper options than throwing $14 million at Mitch Marner on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. We are continuing today with our conversations, let's say, of players the Blue Jackets could bring in to the organization, should bring into the organization. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's neither. We talked about a defenseman yesterday, so I thought today we would talk about a couple of different forward options. Because one of them is a much younger player that has a lot of potential and a lot of potential upside, let's say, but also carries some risk for reasons that we'll get into in a second here. Or do the Blue Jackets bring in an aging veteran with extremely good leadership that could potentially fill the same role as a James Van Riemsdyk, but possibly offer a handful more points at the end of the day? So let's get into the first player. I'm going to talk about Andrei Kuzmenko of the LA Kings, who I mentioned in the outro of yesterday's episode. That's who we were going to talk about. He is a player that has played on 4 different teams over the past 3 seasons, which is immediately kind of a red flag, right? It's not a great sign. He didn't play his first NHL game until the age of, I think 26, his rookie season. But in his rookie season with the Vancouver Canucks, he had 74 points in 81 games. So a pretty good start, right? Unfortunately, from there, it's kind of gone downhill a little bit, and then uphill a little bit, and then downhill a little bit, right? Again, he's played on 4 different teams. So he played 2 years with the Canucks, got traded halfway through the second season to the Flames, played the rest of that season and the first half a season with the Flames, got traded to the Flyers, played 7 whole games with the Flyers, and then spent the rest of the season with the LA Kings, which is where he finished the season, is now a UFA. That doesn't worry me necessarily, but I would say concern is something there. But on the flip side, I do wonder, this might genuinely be a case of it's not the player, it's the team, right? Because the Canucks have been volatile, let's say. Obviously, that's kind of a newish thing that's come in this year, that they kind of, imploded so dramatically. But I get the feeling that a lot of those seeds were sowed, last season, the season before, things like that. And it's just that the team wasn't winning enough to overcome that this year, right? The Flames have been, again, kind of an up and down team. The Flyers, John Tortorella, enough said. And then the LA Kings, where he's played his most recent stint, 17 points in 22 games with the Kings this season. He also was a point a game in the playoffs with 3 goals and 3 assists, which is not nothing. Although I do feel the need to point out that 3 of his points came in the first game of the season, in the first playoff game, excuse me. He had a goal and 2 assists, and then he had a goal and an assist in game 2, and then in games 3, 4, 5, and 6, he had 1 goal. That was in game 5. So probably a little inconsistent. I think is probably the best way to say that. That is his only playoff experience, but this is a guy that it feels like there is, like I said at the top, right? There's potential there. There's risk, sure. Does the potential outweigh the risk? Looking into kind of digging into his underlying stats a little bit. I'm using hockeyviz.com, Micah McCurdy's great website for this, because once again, I know just enough about advanced stats to make me dangerous. So I go to the people who know much more than me. And it looks like, for better or worse, Kuzmenko has been what he is, which is a second line / middle six forward, right? He in his first season was solidly second line. Second and third seasons, he's kind of straddled that line between being a second line player and a third line player. Pretty good defensively, not a slouch, which I think is, again, we've talked about the Blue Jackets need to find decent defensive forwards because you can't. Yes, the majority of it has to go on the six guys playing defense, but if your offensive players aren't going to get back and aren't like competent in their own zone, then you're really gonna you're fighting an uphill battle there. So he's not terrible defensively. His special teams are pretty good. His 5-on-5 offense is not like out of this world good. But he's not a liability, right? And then it gets into, well, how much do you pay a guy like Kuzmenko? His previous cap hit was $5.5 million, which was 2 years long. So he had a 1-year ELC for his rookie season, signed a 2-year extension after that for 5.5. It looks much worse than it is because, again, he played for 4 teams, so his Puckpedia page is extremely long and confusing. But he's only been in the NHL for 3 seasons, which seems, again, there could be something there, or there could not be, right? I think that consistency is probably something that you're going to need to get to see him in terms of, I don't know that anyone really knows what kind of player he is because, again, like he played 81 games with the Vancouver Canucks in his rookie season. His second season, he played 43 with the Canucks and 29 with the Flames. His third season, he played 37 with the Flames, 7 with the Flyers, and 22 with the Kings. So, like, again, that's the opposite of consistency. When he is playing, like he generally is doing pretty good. His average ice time is pretty good. He's getting between 15 and 18 minutes, generally 15 and 17 minutes. There's a middle six forward here, right? Which, again, it really, really depends on what the Blue Jackets want to spend money on, right? Because it would be very easy for them to say, yes, we will certainly spend $14 million on Mitch Marner. A commenter got very, very angry at me for saying in my Mitch Marner video, despite the fact that I didn't at any point suggest that the Blue Jackets should spend $14 million on Mitch Marner in so many words. But say you don't want to spend that money on Marner, say Marner goes somewhere else, right? You move down to the second tier of guys, your Brock Bessers, your Nikolai Ehlers, right? If you're going to get one of those guys, you can probably afford another guy as well, maybe 2 other guys. And if you can get someone like Kuzmenko, who I would probably say it's difficult to judge his value because, yes, he's coming off a $5.5 million contract, but also, again, he's been shopped around the league. Like, again, 4 teams in 3 seasons is wild. Which, again, is that a problem with him? Is that a problem with the team? Is it a little bit of both? Little column A, little column B, which I suspect is probably the answer. But I can't tell whether value is going to be high for him because he had a decent postseason with the Kings. He had a decent end to the season with the Kings. Again, what was it? 15 points in 22 games. Again, that was after his 17 points in 22 games. Excuse me. That was after his 7-game stint in Philadelphia and a 37-game stint in Calgary. So, like, a lot of up and down, a lot of upheaval. I don't think his English is great, so that probably doesn't help either. Like, again, having Russians around is probably on his list of things that he would like. Blue Jackets have a lot of Russians. Do you give him, a show me contract? Or is he, again, I don't know that he's in the same place as we talked about this yesterday with Gavrikov, right? Is he in a place where he wants that 8-year contract? He's 29 years old. Does he want to get that 7-year contract or 8-year contract and just, be done? Or is he going to bet on himself? Like, if you could do a show me contract of like $5 million for 1 or 2 seasons, and he ends up popping the way that, like, again, he was almost a point-a-game player in his rookie season, and since then has been, he had 46 points in 60 in 72 games, which is not great. And then this season, he had in 59, 66 games, he had 22, 37 points. So a little bit better, but, again, it goes back to that risk. Are you going to bet on the fact that you're going to get that 74-point scorer? Or do you bet that you're going to get, probably a 40-point scorer from Kuzmenko? Because those are two very different players and those are two very different contracts. If I'm Kuzmenko, I probably am looking for a show me contract. I'm betting on myself just because I think, if the choice is, okay, I will do, 5 years at 3 million or 1 year at 5 million or 2 years at 5 million, let's say, I don't know that Kuzmenko is going to take the less money for longer. I think he probably takes the big money now and, again, hopes that he pops. The potential is there. I really do think the potential is there. It's just, can you bring that? Can the Blue Jackets bring that potential out, right? So that's the first player. Young player, a lot of potential upside, a lot of potential risk. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about an older player who, for better or worse, is exactly what he is, but is he in the decline of his career now? And will that hurt the Blue Jackets more than his veteran intangibles help them? So we're going to talk about Claude Giroux in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I'm going to tell you about wonderful pistachios. You're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. They are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller for longer. I love the no shells variety. I was just on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and when I was at the train station waiting for my train, I did grab a bag of the jalapeno lime no shells variety, and I did in fact just eat the entire packet, basically just pouring it into my open mouth like a gremlin. So I love that they do a no shells variety. If you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are also a classic favorite. Get snackin and get crackin with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about some more players that could be Blue Jackets when July 1st rolls around. We've talked about Andrei Kuzmenko, who is a high-risk, high-reward type player, I would say. So now we're going to talk a little bit about someone who is a little bit more medium risk, medium reward, let's say. And we're going to talk about Claude Giroux, who was Mr. Philadelphia Flyers for a very, very long time, right? Goes to Florida Cup chasing, doesn't make it, signs at home in Ottawa. He's from just outside of Ottawa, I believe. Signs there for 3 years, is a UFA. A fun fact, when I went into this, I was like, yeah, he's basically like James Van Riemsdyk, but younger. He's actually a year older than James Van Riemsdyk, because Claude Giroux was he, I believe, was a 2004 draft pick, and James Van Riemsdyk was a 2005 draft pick. Unless I'm getting my notes wrong, which is obviously okay. So Giroux was 2006, which means that Van Riemsdyk must have been 2007. I am in fact getting my years wrong. I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again, as I like to say on this show. My point here is, I thought that you were going to, when I first started doing this prep, I was like, well, you're going to get a slightly younger James Van Riemsdyk who is slightly better at putting the puck in the net, because, and this is no shade to James Van Riemsdyk, because I think he did extremely well this year in a very difficult situation. Got ping-ponged around the lineup, and maybe unfairly so, let's say, when he was, he was succeeding at what he was doing. But I think his game has started to decline in a way that I don't think you get 40 points out of James Van Riemsdyk next season, which brings us to Claude Giroux, who had if I can scroll down. He had 50 points this season in 81 games, 15 goals, 35 assists, added 5 points in 6 games in the playoffs, which is pretty good. Again, for a 37-year-old, I believe oldest player on the team. I believe one of the older players in the NHL, actually, which makes me feel extremely old. But he was making $6.5 million. So the question then comes to, okay, what is Claude Giroux going to cost? Because I think to pry him out of Ottawa, you're going to have to offer him significantly more. I think he probably wants to stay in Ottawa. I think he probably feels like taking a hometown discount, and that's fair enough. Again, like if the Senators hadn't made the playoffs this year, I think there's a very different conversation happening. I think he probably gets flipped at the deadline. He's a rapidly approaching old guy without a cup territory, right? But if the Senators keep going up and up, then all credit to them. I think that they can keep him. But if you can pry him out, I think Claude Giroux would be a wonderful addition to the Blue Jackets, to any team really. And I think the Philadelphia Flyers did a disservice to Claude Giroux for basically his entire career, because at the very, very beginning, which was, for clarity's sake, before my time as a fan of the NHL, but there was a lot of conversation about, well, is Giroux in the same conversation as Sidney Crosby, right? And no, but I think it was closer than a lot of people want to believe it was. And Claude Giroux has been a very, very good player for a very, very long time on some truly miserable teams. And weirdly, since his age 29 season, which would have been the 17-18 season, he has just gotten better and better and better. He is comfortably above first line forward caliber. Again, and he's been playing on a mediocre Philadelphia team for a while. We've been playing on a bad Ottawa team, at least until this upcoming season, right? And he, again, has been extremely, extremely good at basically both ends of the ice. He is a guy that I think this team could absolutely use. I think that, again, he is a better James Van Riemsdyk, and James Van Riemsdyk, I thought, was, credit to him, an excellent addition to the team this season. But I think he's probably, again, he's in the twilight of his career. He's not quite as old as Giroux, but I think he started to slow down a little bit more than Giroux has. Giroux was easily a top 6 forward for the Senators this season. Arguably a top 3 forward, let's say. His ice time has started to dip a little bit. He averaged only 18 minutes this season, which is his lowest in a little while. But honestly, again, I feel like you could put Claude Giroux on a line with Adam Fantilli and Ken Johnson, and it would be fine. I think that Claude Giroux probably tends more towards being the third guy, or the old guy with the leadership qualities, and the James Van Riemsdyk of the line. I'm just gonna keep using that as a comparison. James Van Riemsdyk, but better, I think is fair to say. So I don't know that Claude Giroux is definitely again, Claude Giroux is not the best option out there for that line, but I feel like, and again, depending on how much he wants, if you don't want to pay $14 million for Mitch Marner, you go out, you pay your $9 million for the next 7 seasons of Nick Ehlers or whatever, throw him up there with Marchenko and Monahan, and then you've got someone you've got the room for someone like a Claude Giroux to come in and play those middle 6 minutes. You can interchange him with Jenner. I would play Giroux over Jenner easily. And I think he would bring a lot of very similar things that Sean Monahan brought to the team this season, right? In that sometimes you just need an adult that has been around for, in Giroux's case, 20 years almost now. And I think it would really, really help the team. And I think I hadn't really considered him until I was kind of just flipping through Puckpedia the other day to look at some UFAs, and I was like, oh, Claude Giroux. Would he be a good fit? Let's take a look at what his numbers are like. And it turns out his numbers are stunningly good. Now, I will say, the caveat to this is he has started to decline since he got to Ottawa. So he had 79 points in 82 games his first season there, which was the 22-23 season. The season after that, the 23-24 season, he had 64 points in 82 games. This season, 50 points in 81 games. So, like, he's losing about 15 points a season right now. So, the question is, if you sign Claude Giroux and you only get 30 to 40 points out of him, are you prepared to pay the, 4 or 5 million that he's probably going to command? His current contract, which is expired, was 6.5 million for 3 years. Are you is Ottawa willing to pay that? If Ottawa's not willing to pay that, what are they willing to pay? Is a team like Columbus willing to outbid his hometown team? It's a big, that's the biggest question to me, because I absolutely would take Claude Giroux on this team in a heartbeat. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's a really good play driver. I think he's good defensively. I think, again, he's just got a good attitude, I think. And I think I was going to say he knows how to win, which seems mean considering he's played on exclusively the Philadelphia Flyers, 5 minutes of the Florida Panthers the year that they didn't win, and the Ottawa Senators, who only just made the playoffs this year. But he has that attitude of, he's been around a long time. He knows, he knows the ropes. He's been around the block. I just think he would be a really good addition to this team. So the question for me becomes, in this, hypothetical here, of these two players, who do you go for? Are either of them worth taking a flyer on, if you will excuse me, a very bad pun, in these two former Philadelphia Flyers? Let's take a quick break, and then we'll try to discuss. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've talked about Andrei Kuzmenko. We've talked about Claude Giroux. Young player with upside, aging veteran with leadership. Both carry their own risk, I think, but both carry their own upside. So, are either of them, do you try and sign either of them? Do you sign one of them? Do you sign both of them? Do you sign neither of them? And, this was a difficult one for me, because I feel like Kuzmenko fits the team's vague age better. I think there is potential that you get, if, again, I'm not saying that they should sign him to a 6 or 7 year contract, but if it turns out he fits in here, his show me contract goes well, you potentially are going to get another, 5-6 years out of a guy like Kuzmenko. Claude Giroux, this feels like he's not necessarily one and done, but he's definitely at the end of his career, right? He is not quite cup chasing, I don't think, but he's definitely approaching that. So do you want, 2 years, maybe 3 at the absolute max of Claude Giroux? Or do you want, 2 years to start off with, and then potentially another 4 or 5 of a guy like Kuzmenko, who is more of a wild card than Giroux, but I think has higher upside? So again, it goes back to high risk, high reward with Kuzmenko, or medium risk, medium reward with Giroux. And that's the $64,000 question, right? Is, do you go big or go home, or do you go medium and maybe go home later, right? And I am really torn with this, because my instinct is go big or go home, right? My instinct is high risk, high reward. I think that those are the players that the Blue Jackets have had success with. But I do genuinely think that you will have more success with a guy like Giroux, because while I think Kuzmenko fits the timeline of the team, I think Giroux fits the attitude of the team a little bit better. So that's that's the conclusion. And I keep kind of approaching this from different angles, right? I'm like, well, there's potential for, 60, 70 points from Kuzmenko. Are you content to get 40 points out of Claude Giroux? If you look at the fact that, again, he is extremely good at even strength. His power play numbers are not great. His penalty kill numbers are not great. So you would be getting him just for his even strength play, which, in fairness, is very good, right? He is an extremely good 5-on-5 player. his power play and penalty kill numbers have dipped. I wouldn't say significantly, but they've definitely they peaked probably 5 to 6 years ago and have been on a slow and then very fast decline since then. So ironically, his where his special teams were the best were also his 5-on-5 play started to go up. So maybe they just figured out that actually he doesn't like to play special teams. But do you go out and get a guy that again can help you on special teams, but is kind of negligible 5-on-5, or do you get an extremely good 5-on-5 player that is probably not going to be a lot of help on special teams? Which goes back to the Blue Jackets were an extremely good 5-on-5 team this season, right? They were, I think, they scored the most goals of any team at 5-on-5 this season. Do you bring in a special teams guy? Do you bring in a guy like Kuzmenko? Or do you bring in a guy like Giroux? Again, there isn't a right answer here, I don't think, which is why I kind of keep going around in circles. Like, I know what my head wants and I know what my heart wants, or what my head says or what my heart says, right? And those are two different answers. Like my head says Kuzmenko, my heart says Giroux, right? And I don't think that either of those are the right answer. I don't think either of those are the wrong answer, but there is a lot of, I don't think either of them would be bad. Why not go wild? Get both, right? It's not like you don't have the money to do it. I think getting both of them would be interesting because I don't know that either of them are necessarily a lock for the top line. And the Blue Jackets need to get a top line winger at the very least. They need a top 6 guy, and I think these are both middle 6 guys, right? Which is a small but important distinction. So I really think you can only get one. If you can only have one, like I think I lean Giroux. I think he fits the team better. As much as it would be nice to have Kuzmenko, who is a good power play guy, a not terrible penalty kill guy. I think if you can bring a guy like Giroux in, who can again kind of be the James Van Riemsdyk, the Sean Monahan, etc., who we've seen this season, the young guys on the team really, really responded to. Kent Johnson responded really well to James Van Riemsdyk. They've really, really bonded. Adam Fantilli and Sean Monahan really bonded. It makes me feel really old to say that Sean Monahan is one of the old guys on the team, because he is, I believe, slightly younger than me. But I think that it feels like, as well, Don Waddell is not necessarily playing safe, but if he's going to go out and bet big, it's going to be on a top-line guy, right? It's going to be on a Mitch Marner or a Nick Ehlers or a Brock Besser, right? I don't think he's going to risk on... But I don't think he's going to play it risky on a middle 6 guy. I don't think that Kuzmenko is the kind of guy that Don Waddell will go after. I could see him bringing Claude Giroux into the lineup. Again, he's the GM of the Hurricanes for a long, long time. He's seen a lot of Claude Giroux. He has probably not been personally victimized by Claude Giroux, but he knows exactly what kind of player he is, and I think that certainty will probably read better to Waddell than a big question mark like Kuzmenko, who, again, I can't get past that 4 teams in 3 seasons, right? And maybe that's on me, because I think that there is not necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily the player's fault if he jumps around a lot, but that's a lot of teams in a very short space of time. And again, 7 games in Philadelphia with, the John Tortorella Philadelphia Flyers is, again, I'm almost definitely not Kuzmenko's fault. But if he doesn't stay in LA, I think, a 5th team in a 4th season, risky. Feels risky. Not necessarily a red flag, but definitely like a burgundy or a maroon flag, let's say. I was like, what's between red and green? And the answer is nothing. But I think knee-jerk reaction, and also now that I've been talking around it for like 7 minutes, I think Giroux is the option. I wouldn't be upset if they brought Kuzmenko in. Again, all of this depends on contract length and contract money and blah 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 blah. Who else they bring in? But if they called me up and said, "Hey Jay, we can bring in either of these 2 guys. Which one would you bring in?" I'd probably say Giroux. and I feel fine about that. So we'll see. I don't think either are particularly likely. This is more just kind of fun for me. One player that I've liked for a long time, and one player that seems like a wild card in the whole UFA situation. But that's kind of it for me today. Tomorrow, I think what we're going to do is talk about. I think we're going to talk about Kent Johnson tomorrow. I think that feels fun. That feels like a new thing, because we've done a lot of UFA talk, and I still want to try and get through, maybe not all of the players, but I want to get through, some of the bigger names for this team this season. So, guys that really took steps forward. And Kent Johnson ended up finishing the season tied for third in points on the team with 57 points in not all 82 games, because he missed a bunch. We played 68 games and had 57 points. So I feel like that's worth talking about. First 20-goal season. Great season from KJ. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTEI. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTEI. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. I think I just did that. My brain is mush. Thank you for listening. Once again, tomorrow we'll be talking all about KJ and the Rockstar season that he had. But until then, make sure you stay locked on.